We'll do another video here. Sorry, it's kind of shaky. That's the best I can do under current financial circumstances. But I wanted to do this video just to alert people out there who are being targeted, especially by racist or religious extremists. One way that they will target you and ruin your life is by messing with your student loans. So they'll default, or so they'll go. Actually, first they'll go into default, then they'll go into collections, which will ruin your credit, and they can guarantee your wages. Even go after, I'm pretty sure, go after veterans and Social Security benefits. And what they'll do is they'll mess with your dashboards. You know, when you upload to your servicer documentation for whatever, they will they'll simulate you so you think you're uploading to the site, but to the appropriate site that your servicer uses, but you're not. You're uploading to a spoof site. Not only does this ruin your credit and ruin your reputation when the federal government looks at you, electronically, but also they get all your private information. And this is what's happening to me right now. This also happened to my brother, but his was different circumstance, but he was kind of jerked around a little bit too, but different. That was a long time ago, before, internet was so common. And so people are doing this to me much differently. But the fact of the matter is, even if somebody is disabled, my opinion is they should make some kind of effort to pay the loans back when their income is stable. Something, even $10 a month. But of course, if you're disabled, you don't have to. I don't know. It's complicated, but if somebody is disabled and they clearly have, adequate income for their family, um, whoever family and extended family that they help take care of, um, and family overseas, then there's nothing wrong with paying back a little bit of it. Um, or another option could be taking the money that you would pay back for your loans and saving that money for 5 or 10 years, and then creating some kind of a scholarship. That's probably, you know, that's probably a it's kind of yeah, that's probably a better idea actually, because then it's not going into the federal coffers; it's going into investing in somebody else to help them um, have a better life, especially people who are children of people who are disabled, to help them to rise above. Actually, that's probably a better idea now that I mention it than paying back the government, because you're disabled legally. You don't have to. Your loans are expunged. They're supposed to be expunged from your credit record, but sometimes um, this is because of negligence. Things do go on your credit report. It's happened a lot, and people are even litigated, and people even have their wages guaranteed. And they're like, not wages, corrections, to be their disability, and veterans too. I'm disabled. They're supposed to be expunged from my. That's the best word to use. It denotes criminality, but everybody understands the word expunge. So I'm using that. But what it means is erased. All student loans, once you are disabled, they are erased from your record. But if you go out of disability, let's say uh, your condition betters, or they find a cure, then things get a little murkier. They can come back and say, oh, hey, you're better now. Or if you're on certain kinds of disability and you're working full time, they're like, wait a minute. They're like, you're on SSI for such and such thing, and you're not reporting your income, but you're supposed to, or, different situations like that. Or if a veteran is not permanently disabled and they're not at their 10-year mark, the 10-year rule, then potentially, things could come back. But generally, they don't. If they do, it's negligence or it's conservative retaliation. And there's nothing wrong with being conservative. The problem is conservative one percenters. They they don't consider that not everybody is a one percenter, and so they want to hold tight to everything, including their own income, including federal government funds that could be used to help people rise, and give back. They try to end programs like that. So it's rather destructive, and it's rather greedy, and it's like having a feudal lord all over again. And my approach to this would be being conservative economically, budget wise, but yet not eliminating programs, not taking from others so that they can rise, you know, um, cutting waste, trimming the fat, If you have three or four programs that basically do the same thing, why not why not merge them and maybe trim the fat? Do you need such large staff? Oh, we have waste here. There's some redundancy here. Trim it. That's the way I approach things. Not eliminate it totally. Um, and if there's nonprofits that already do this, why not, give some of the federal funding, make availability to the nonprofits, and decrease the federal programs? Because nonprofits, as long as you continue, funneling some of that federal money to the nonprofits, in addition to nonprofit fundraising, you're going to be able to help more people than the people that walk into a federal program and they pick and choose who they're going to help. You know, that's what I would say. But of course, the problem with nonprofits is sometimes there's not enough oversight. So things are complex. That's why there's people with much higher pay grades than me and much more resources than me who figure this out. I just have ideas, that's all. But that being said, now if people are going to mess with your student loans and ruin your life even more, those are a couple of the ways they do it. And right now, the place where I live, I don't know if it's the landlord or if it's the property management company or if it's the owners or if it's people just recommending people to move in here. But we have a lot of racist extremists that move into our complex and they target my daughter and I. I'm not saying all, I'm saying there's many. And people from our former place followed us here. And they also are racist extremists and they target us. They followed us here. They moved under different names. Sometimes they sublet. Sometimes they rent 4 or 5 apartments because apparently, they have some wealth too. But I think they're connected to a gang. That's what I think. Connected to a gang, and they've got some friends who are criminal hackers. They're not good people. I'll say that. And so they keep hacking all of our devices and trying to prevent me from filing the appropriate stuff with my servicers. And these are also some of the same people. I don't know how they managed to get employed at the VA, but apparently they have friends that worked at HUD-VASH, and that's why these people that worked at HUD-VASH, specifically one HUD-VASH caseworker, but she worked closely with another HUD-VASH caseworker who is a racist extremist and it has very destructive attitudes, but people at the VA don't know or they don't care. But they're the reason why I paid out so much money in my credit lines, my credit cards, and my savings. The first 2 months we were homeless, and she said I was going to get paid back. She's actually friends, or I don't know, maybe something romantic with another HUD-VASH caseworker, the one who I said before has ties to racial extremism. And so they these people they travel in the same circles. but you got to watch those loans so it doesn't ruin your life more because it will come back and bite you. And once you're disabled, the downside is you can't take out loans anymore. Um, that's a problematic, but there's programs out there to help people. Yeah, they're not great. There isn't a lot of programs out there to help people who want to go into a professional degree. Like to be a nurse or a doctor or a lawyer or a clinical psychologist or even a social worker. There's nothing there. They're going to push you into voced. They're going to push you like something like nurse's aid, mental health. What do they call them? Mental health, mental health, mental health aid. I forgot the name, but there's something similar to a nurse's aid, but you work in mental health. Um, you'd like work under what do they call them? A mental health nurse. You'd be the person working under him or her. Um, or auto body type stuff. Not realizing the best mechanics I know, they may not have a bachelor or an associate's, but they might as well because they understand the engineering. They can picture the schematics of an engine in their head, or the guys that do body repair. I don't mean I was talking before of auto engine repair. Now I'm talking about auto body repair. These are guys that can picture how to cut metal and how to size it up and how to replace it and weld and bondo and paint and bake in their head. These are people that if they had the opportunity and their knowledge was put down on paper, like some kind of credentialing, they'd have an associate's or bachelor's just from testing because they know so much. But those guys are rare. So I think it's probably great if people that go into anything automobile are given the opportunity for an associate's or a bachelor's degree or even a higher. But there's not a lot of programs out there. They'll push you into auto tech, which is not even an associate's degree. That's the sad part. Again, we have one percenters trying to keep people down. The only way you could rise above that is if you made your own business. Then you could pay for your bachelor's degree. Of course, it's going to be later in life, so your bachelor or master is going to be terminal. That's the problem in our culture again. One percenters go and pay for college in cash, and they have so much backing, they don't need to take out loans or worry about a Pell Grant or a tuition grant. They don't have to worry about any of it. Now, if you're disabled or you grew up in poverty, it makes it even more difficult. And if you can't go into the military or public health service or um, Peace Corps or AmeriCorps, you're stuck. You have to pay for it yourself. Now, if your disability payments are high enough, you can pay in cash for your school. Your family will just have to tighten their belt for a while. Or if you're good academically, tighten your belt for a while and then get a TA position. Or maybe some kind of employment with the school. That way your tuition's waived. But as it is now, there isn't a lot out there for higher education. If you find something, generally it's like an associate's degree, which most employers nowadays. I mean, it's a foot in the door. I'll say that. Some good employers are going to help you get a bachelor's degree after you have your associates. But that being said, these programs they're they're not we're not populated with a lot of employers who have that kind of approach. Um, yeah. So that being said, yeah, I mean it could be a struggle if you're disabled, even as a veteran. We have programs out there, but again, they're they're specific. I mean, again, it's better than nothing. Um, I mean, but we do have a little better programs out there to go into certain fields. You'll get subsidized to go into certain fields. I mean, which would be good for the VA. At one time, the VA had programs to grab nurses, PAs, and doctors to work at the VA. Same thing the National Public Health Service does. Same thing the military does, except with the Public Health Service and the military, you have age requirements. But generally, well, the Public Health Service doesn't waive as much as the military will. But if you go into the Medical Corps, or the Medical Service Corps, or the Nurse Corps, with any branch of the military, excluding Coast Guard, because they either use Navy, Army, or Public Health Service medical officers and nurse officers. Um, you'll find that you'll be wavered. If you're a doctor, a nurse, a psychologist is a lot more competitive. If you're a somebody who has a degree in any kind of thing, in the laboratory, it can be more competitive, but there's a lot of billets for that too. So there's stuff out there. The Nurse Corps, they're always looking for people, always. And you want to be a nurse practitioner, the military is the way to go, or the Public Health Service. That's the way to go because you will get so much experience in so many diverse areas when you go to get into a program, and they may even pay for it to be a nurse practitioner. When you go for your MSN or your um, there's another nurse practitioner. I think there's a master's of nurse. I think it's an MNP. I'm not sure about that, but there's also a DNP, and you'll be ready. You'll be able to have your own practice, and the only connection to a physician will be um, for certain things you'll need them to sign. But you'll have so much experience and so much, clinical hours in so many different areas. The doctor's probably going to come to you more than they even do normally. Doctors have their theory, they have the math, they have the science up here, but when it comes to the application of all of that, they go to their nurses. And sometimes when it comes to the stuff that people just write off of, oh, we have to dose such and such per pound or per kilo for such and such, doctors are like, yeah, nurse, will you calculate that? Because they don't, they're so far up here in their head with theory and with pathology and stuff that sometimes they don't know the simple stuff, unless they're in rotations or they're an ER doc. Gotta love your ER docs. I mean, I've met some the past few years that aren't great people, but overall, you gotta love your ER docs and your ER nurses. These are people that can think on their feet and they are highly intelligent. Generally, lately around Michigan, I've seen some people that I'm not really that impressed with, but um, overall speaking, in the normal world, not where you have a add a boy and add a girl kind of nepotism, like you're all right with me. Don't worry about that. We'll whitewash the paperwork. In the normal world where people don't do that stuff, you won't find people with such crappy attitudes. But overall, as I said, highly intelligent, highly professional, and these are people that can think on their feet. But now back to the student loan thing. Um, so there's resources out there, not a lot, but you got to search for them. But you got to protect those loans, and you know if you can find out who is messing with your accounts or get an IP or something, and then get it to the right people. And if your local community doesn't want to listen, like I found in mid Michigan, law enforcement, they don't care, they don't want to get involved. Sometimes they have informants with these gangs or these racist extremist groups, so they don't want to get involved, then go public. You never want to go public because it can burn bridges, it can make enemies, but you have to protect yourself and you have to protect your family because in the end, that's all that matters.